The views and opinions expressed on the Hex Files are not necessarily ones that I share. However, in the interests of non-censorship and transparency, the Hex Files brings you unedited interviews and conversation with guests of a magical, queer, feminist background. As such, the following episode may contain contentious and adult themes, so beware. Welcome to the Hex Files, in association with Sentient Sanctuary. I'm your host, Dana Fox. Magical practice is difficult. It's bloody hard work, in fact. If there were ever a time when it were about glorious enlightenment and fabulous powers, then those days are gone. There's not going to be a blinding light and a sudden revelation. Your holy guardian angel isn't going to appear and grant you all the powers of the universe. He's going to stand behind you, poke you in the ribs and tell you you've got work to do. The fact is that everybody is capable of being part of the magical world and being on a spiritual path. But unfortunately, most people have a very skewed idea of what this entails and what the results are. And who can blame them? We have Hollywood, social media, bloody self-help books now available on Kindle. We're constantly being distanced from people with opposing viewpoints instead of being encouraged to debate and even argue. We're given two very polarized options. Either everyone is entitled to their opinion no matter how offensive or deluded, or we're told that anybody who is an other is dangerous and unhealthy, and please think of the children. And then we're given 140 character limits to debate on Twitter. We're told that we can be provocative and artistic, but if you're a woman, don't show your nipples. And if you don't pay for advertising, by the way, your voice won't actually be heard by anyone. These are people and systems and tools which are designed for a quick fix and immediate solutions, which denies us the challenge and hard work of engaging and interacting. There's no getting your hands dirty anymore. And if you get your hands dirty, there's probably a fucking Snapchat filter which can make them look clean again. And so not only is a magical path difficult anyway, but we have a society comprised of generations of people who think that by the time you're 20, you should have it all figured out. Your eyebrows should be perfect, and that the pinnacle of human achievement is going on Love Island. So I wanted to share an experience with you. You're going to have to bear with me because it's a tenuous link. All of my links are kind of tenuous. It was one of my first contacted magical experiences. It happened in vision before I had a systematic and safe, sensible way of doing it. I just sort of stumbled upon it. I ended up in a place. Now, over time, Oneronauts, mystics, have given these places many names. The Mauve Zone, the Underworld, Dart, there's loads. Could be transplutonic or Uranian. I know now that it's a primordial point before expansion. It's also the deepest, darkest end space. It's where nothing becomes something, and it's where everything becomes nothing. I don't quite know what its function is yet, whether it's a threshold or a crossing to be traversed. I do know that it can appear to people in many different ways, as a liminal space between lucidity and dreaming. With practice, human beings can reach these places safely, interface with them, and communicate with the intelligences and archetypes and consciousnesses that are there. It presents itself differently to each person in the same way I may look up at the clouds and see a dragon, you may look at the clouds and see a comedy willy, although it is fairly more likely to be me who sees cloud cocks, as I have a childish sense of humour. Our minds govern our perceptions of these, and it's the same with the intelligences and beings that reside there. What appears as one thing to someone else may appear differently to me. You can't find any of these in grimoires or in any of the books which have very prescriptive images and lists of associations and legions of demons and stuff. It's all bollocks. So it was during one of my first experiences with visionary magic, some years ago, that I came to this place, and now I'm going to refer directly to notes from my journal, scrawled in margins next to the preliminary invocation through a haze of incense and wormwood. Cringe. Anyway, I quote, "I was pushed forward, cold shudders, candles flickered every time I asked, 'Are you there?' Fucking unreal. Moved 2 candles into the triangle, left arm extremely cold. I remember being compelled to bed, suddenly to sleep. A few pages later in my diary, marked 0201, 1 minute past 2 in the morning. This was the entry I wrote after I woke up. Again, I quote, "It was like a dream, but not. I was aware, but not what I would call lucid. I would liken it to those moments when you're sat still, drinking coffee just off the main street, watching the people go by. Nobody interacts with you. Everybody's rushing to and fro. You're not particularly engaged, but you're not unconscious either." And that's what it was like. And all around me in this dream was a great white space, like the inside of an empty art gallery. There were white blocks and plinths, spaces where windows would have been, yet there were nothing but indentations. And the space seemed to be vestigial, like a vague, unfinished plaster cast of some other space familiar to me. And in this room, in this zone, a cacophony of human-like people, all colours, sizes and genders, some in little more than gold jewellery, some with tight curled hair adorned with blue butterflies. They're all gathered as if paying respects at a rowdy kind of wake. There was a sort of good-natured animosity, many different groups and squabbling conversations happening all at once. Sometimes a debate would spill over into raucous laughter or shouting, but it would quickly die down. It was as if everybody was scrabbling for attention and recognition, offering a different viewpoint and a conflicting way to proceed. And proceed with what? Here and there were a few people dressed in white. They looked younger somehow, cleaner than the others. I realized that they were watching from the outskirts of this rabble group, same as I was, and I thought at once maybe that these were other humans visiting at the same time. Suddenly there was a voice which was louder than all the others. It demanded attention and everyone gathered round. Numerous smaller groups broke apart and formed one large gathering. From the back where I was, I couldn't see who was speaking, but I heard, or rather sensed that I heard, roles being assigned. What had felt like a pre-battle pep rally and then an after-party now felt like an introductory meeting before a rehearsal or something. It was as if all possible moments of one event had collided and were playing out in front of me. Once all these roles were assigned, the room emptied and I was swept along with the last few. I found myself in a rectangular hall with several intimate seating booths along the side of the walls. At one end there was a table full of plates, bereft of anything but crumbs and a few small items which bizarrely looked like tiny little pastries. I had no idea what this meant, but I seemed to have missed the party. A woman in a long burgundy skirt patterned with flowers walked past, looking like she'd perhaps been tidying up. She had the air of a long-suffering cleaning lady who was tired of cleaning up other people's mess. She turned to me and said, "It's just a bloody cult." I smiled and then later wished that I'd challenged her. Clearly, this was an important event. And suddenly I was back in the white room with everyone again. It was as if I'd been taken back in time, if indeed there was time here, which I thoroughly doubted. So maybe this was a fragment of that raucous meeting which had just been taken out of context because of its importance. I was watching the noisy group of people as they were given their duties and roles. It was like it was being replayed to me, like I'd missed something. And I felt somebody looking at me from behind. And I turned to see someone leaning against one of the plinths, seemingly disinterested in the noise around us. He seemed to unfold from himself. I know that sounds strange, but that's what I saw. He resembled a fully formed male wearing some sort of leather headpiece. He had a long staff or stick tucked in a holster over his shoulder, and he was smirking at me, as if to say, "I don't care about any of this. I've seen all this shit before. But I know you, and you know me." How does this experience relate to the difficulties of magic? How is magic difficult if I just stumbled into this? Well, that's not my point. You can find different ways of putting yourself in division. Some of them, like the technique I used on this particular occasion, are needlessly complex and very hit and miss. But this is more to do with my reaction rather than my approach, both to visionary work and spirituality in general. And there were days when I would psychologize magical experiences, that is to say that I would analyze and intellectualize what I was seeing in order to quantify them. Not in a skeptical way, though. I'm hugely skeptical in an open-minded way. I'd long since put down the idea that maybe this wasn't actually real and maybe this was just all in my head. No, I'd had several, oh shit, this is real moments. Now I was wondering what to do with those moments. And what I mean is I had and have a constant desire to question how and why and to define. And that's all fine and well and good, and it serves me perfectly in my day-to-day life. But it's kind of a dodgy way of going about magic, in my opinion, to psychoanalyze it. Magic and psychology are like knowing a couple going through a divorce. It's great to see them individually. They bring joy and wonder to your life in different ways, but together they're vastly different when you get beyond the surface. Anyway, I digress. I do that a lot because I like analogies. It is a good example of how the idea that everyone's opinion is correct has really muddled thinking. Everyone's opinion is valid and worthy, of course. I have that as one of my basic tenets of my life, is that every person individually matters, every single person without question. But there are some areas like magic where not every opinion is correct. That's something that I might not have agreed with a while ago. The other thing which makes a magical path so difficult today is that our lives are so damn convenient, in the Western world at least. Even for those of us who don't organise our lives around on-demand TV or spend every spare second staring at our phones looking for something to occupy our little dancing monkey brains, it seeps into the lives of the most dedicated and well-intentioned of us. You need a book, it's on Amazon. You can find it in seconds and it'll be delivered in days. You need to arrange a meeting? Don't bother. There's Facebook group chats, and if you really want to see someone else's face, there's Skype. Need picking up? Uber. Need a shelf on the wall? Don't bother learning how to do it yourself. Just log on to TaskRabbit. Now, all these tools have their place in our lives. Of course they do. I use lots of them myself. Unless you want to go and live in a cave, they are part of our lives and part of how we live. These conveniences are there. There's no going back, but we must look at them for what they are. They are transient, trendy devices and systems which serve a purpose but will be gone within a few decades to be replaced by something else, trendier and even more transient. And they're great for now. They work sometimes. But when we forget that these things could just disappear overnight or stop working, then we have problems when we rely on them. And we've been conditioned to expect and therefore demand everything right now. And when that expectation follows us into our magical practice, oh shit, do we have problems. I can happily speak from experience. Just take the experience that I told you earlier, and the fact that I didn't know what the hell it meant, or who that guy was at the end, or where exactly it was, that's all okay. And since then I've had many experiences like that, and it's taken months and months to even begin to unpack them. Most of it, I haven't a clue. I probably won't understand until I stumble over it in a random book somewhere and go, oh, got it, I got it now, oh, okay. Or speak to someone else who had similar experiences. Blue butterflies, anyone, by the way. And that's okay. And the problem is that we're brought up to think that it's not okay, that we must have all the answers now, and even worse, that we can find them on shit like Wikipedia. Fortunately, there's not some mass-organized conspiracy enabling this and forcing you to. It's a self-organized, automatically regulating system which you're free to step away from at any time. So that's one thing that I've definitely changed about myself as my magic has become less about me. It's to slow down. Not everything has a hashtag. Not everything yields immediate results. And if someone tells you they have easy answers to difficult questions, run a mile. They're either lying or trying to sell you something, and therefore also lying. There are rarely any set degrees or levels. It's like a tide going in and out. When it goes out, my God, enjoy the peace. Eat well, keep exercising, keep meditating, go over your notes, do the hoovering. Because when it comes back in again, you'll be bursting with energy and you'll have a massive to-do list. Magical paths are so hard, and so they should be. And we've forgotten so much as a species, as a race, as a generation. We've learned bad habits. We've given ourselves a list of expectations, and we have a bunch of mental chewing gum distractions to entertain us. Life sometimes has inconclusive endings too, and so do podcasts. I wanted to thank you very much for listening to my first one. There will be more on the way soon, where I will be inviting special guests to come and talk with me. I shall attempt to not do much talking on those ones, because I fully intend to allow other people a platform to talk about their practices and their interests without much interference from myself. So my name is Dana Fox. This is The Hex Files in association with Sentient Sanctuary. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to The Hex Files in association with Sentient Sanctuary. Witchcraft and magic, religion and spirituality, the paranormal, LGBT and queer issues, and alternative culture.